I feel like part of being creative or part of being artistic is being able to notice art all around you, right? Like in your everyday life,
Definitely. Yeah.
and having this I don't know, being able to notice beauty around you.
Yes.
And I think part
Yeah.
of being creative or being artistic or just being able to being someone who appreciates art and beautiful things is finding novelty in things and familiarity in things, because that's part of what being artistic is about. I think
Mm.
it's just finding that curiosity about the world and tying that to just your feelings, the way you feel about things, and we all have that in us.
Welcome to the second episode of what I like to call the Design Draw Do podcast, or is it the third? No, I think it's the second. So I said in the previous episode that I would be interviewing or kind of having a conversation more like with friends or anyone who I could get to invite basically on this thing. And today I have one of my good friends who also used to be my neighbour back when I was studying in university. Her name is Farah. She defines herself as more of a creative than an artist, and I thought it would be really interesting to have her because we always had such interesting conversations. I used to go around to her place to paint, and it was just really fun times. We had really great conversations about creativity, and I think this is a great video or conversation to listen to if you feel like you are less artistic but you still have creative inclinations, or even just if you're not an artist. I think this is a really good listen. We talk about things like living your life in seasons, how life can revolve around creativity and the ebbs and flows of that, and how it can change as you get older, as well as the creative projects that she is working on and what it means to do creative projects for yourself. We just get straight into the conversation, so I hope you can just sit back and enjoy. I mean, yeah, I totally get what you're saying about like lack of time, because I feel like everyone kind of says that, but is it more just a lack of priorities, do you think?
I do think it's a priority thing, yeah, definitely, because I mean, if you're prioritizing work, if you're deciding to, I think it's also an energy thing, because you put your energy into, it depends, different people have different levels of energy, or
Mm.
yeah, you know, I know for myself, for example, that I've been putting a lot of my energy into work and
Mm.
then crashing after, you know, office hours and then just watching something stupid
Mm.
or just wanting to continue on in the same mindset, so reading about stuff that has to do with work, or kind of maintaining, just continuing on with, yeah, the same mindset, being in the same mind space of my field, or yeah. So but I do agree, it's a prioritization, isn't it? Because you're not
Mm.
deciding to prioritize creativity.
But I mean, that's interesting. You said that you continue working outside of your work hours. Is that something that you feel like you have to do or you enjoy doing?
No, I enjoy doing it. And when
Mm.
I say working, not necessarily working, but reading about stuff that has to do with my work, or just it just feels like, maybe that's just the way I am, but if I'm interested in something, then it will become my whole world. So I'll
Mm.
continue to just be in the same mind space of, this is kind of what I do, so I will read articles about this, or I will um, be thinking about things that don't even have to do with work, but
Mm.
kind of in, that I think kind of would inform that area of my life. And I
Mm.
know that I also do tend to do it with other things. It's not just work, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, getting obsessed with a certain, you know, idea, or just whatever I'm doing, I'm wholeheartedly kind of doing it, um,
Yeah.
including if I'm being creative, then that's kind of all I'm doing, quote unquote.
Mm. That's quite a nice sentiment actually, because in a way I'm like the complete opposite. Like I give 20% effort to everything. That's kind of like my joke. Like even my degree, I kind of gave that 20% effort. And then I put 80% effort in like everything else. But I think it's really admirable when, someone can do that, because it's not something I ever can do or could do, just because my brain doesn't work like that.
Do you feel like when it comes to creativity though that you're able to put it, where does the 80% go to? Because you said 20% in
So
whatever you're
it's more like
quote unquote supposed to be doing.
it's more like 20%. I give 20% to everything, let's say, or 10%, right? So
So it's a
like,
bit more spread out.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah,
kind of person who like has to have a hand in everything, basically.
yeah.
So when it comes to creative, even with creativity, like I can't stick to one medium. For example, like I have to do
Mm.
different mediums. Like for example, even now I'm doing a charcoal drawing, which is not something I usually do, but because I saw it on Instagram, like someone was doing it and I was really inspired. So then I was just like, oh hey, I want to do charcoal now. So I kind of, you know, it's kind of like I'll just dedicate different amounts of time to different
Mm.
things. I'm not someone who gets like super obsessed over one thing and I can do that like for the rest of my life or something. Um, but I think it's kind of, you need both types of people in the world, if that
Definitely,
makes sense.
yeah. And both types of attitude in the same person as well, because or kind of like a balance, because
Yeah,
if you're intense about one thing, and when I talk
yeah,
about, this whatever intensity that if we were to describe it as intensity, it's not like I want to do it for the rest of my life. I also want to do
mm,
different things, but when I'm focusing on
yeah,
something, that's all I think about.
mm,
But then that's not necessarily great either, because you forget about everything else, or you
mm,
neglect other
true,
things. So
true.
obviously balance, I mean, that's a universal kind of thing. Yeah, balance, blah blah. But I do think
Mm.
it's true. You need a bit of that.
Yeah. And I was thinking when you were talking about it, maybe is it like an age thing as well? Do you think like, when you're younger, you kind of have more energy to focus on creativity, and also society is kind of structured in such a way that it gives younger people the space to be more creative, whereas older people, it doesn't necessarily do that. So do you think that plays a factor for you at least?
I do I do think that can be true. Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
Not necessarily in my case. I don't feel like
mm,
that, because even though I don't know, I'm dedicating my life to different things,
mm,
or not necessarily the creativity itself, but I also still think of myself as a creative person,
yeah,
and it's not something I think I have expectations against, if that makes
yeah.
sense. And in fact, I was telling you this before we started recording, and the other day in by text, but no, I don't think I told you what I'm about to tell you, but I feel like um, I have like, and I'm stealing this from someone else, by the way, what I'm about to say,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like I feel like I have kind of seasons in my life, like certain things
Mm,
that I focus on, and obsessively, but also and compulsively, but also, um, and I know that I'm not describing it the way that I've heard it being described somewhere else, and I don't know
no
where it was, but
worries.
it was on YouTube. But basically,
Mm,
someone described, living your life in seasons, and
mm,
I really like that. And then when I heard that, that was when I started feeling a bit of a shift in my life. So at the moment, I'm going through a little bit of a shift. No,
mm,
the shift happened like about a month ago, where I was thinking about certain things, and I decided actually I'm going to focus. The next thing I will be focusing on is creativity. And
mm,
I was like, this is. I just felt very strongly about this being my next quote unquote season, or
mm.
my next priority kind of. And
Yeah.
as soon as I had that thought, things just started shifting. I don't know, like literally shifting.
Wow.
I mean, even you sent me some pictures, um,
Yeah.
the lilac pictures, and
Mm,
I came across this event on this app called Let's Go,
mm.
um, and I went and I met some people who were creative, and then
Wow.
and and I just I was like, what's going on? And then I recently, and then I organized this event called Art in the Park. And it
Oh,
was
that's so cool.
yesterday. It was
Oh,
just
awesome.
strangers, people I don't know, except
That
like
is so cool.
one person I knew and like a couple of from the previous event. And
Mm,
I just basically drew things in a park, in Green Park here in London.
mm,
And
mm-hmm.
um, I think, I don't know, maybe it was just about time that I had this
Yeah.
kind of shift in my life. But I was focusing on some things that have happened in the past.
Mm,
Um, and I was like, actually, I don't want to, this is not my story. This is not what I'm going to focus on. And I remember writing um, this diary entry, journal entry, and deciding,
mm,
actually, my story is this, and I'm going to be creative, and I'm going to do more art, and I'm going to focus on the Lilac Project that I
mm-hmm.
told you about, that you know about through just my res my what's the term that you used? I guess my research for the project.
Just to note, in this point, Farah is talking about a colour project that she's working on, which she will talk about later in the discussion when we talk more about her personal creative projects.
And then the shift happened. But of course we can also
Mm,
argue that the shift happened because I decided to go to that event because I was looking for it, and I responded to your message in a way that indicates blah blah. But yeah, that's kind of where I am at the moment. So we can think of this as another kind of sh- intensity towards a thing, which is being
yeah.
the creativity. And I'm sorry I didn't answer your question about whether or not
No, that's fine.
but yeah, the reason why I guess I don't think that applies in my life is because of course I focus on expectations and on certain expectations on me, um not necessarily focusing on it, I mean, but like I do have some expectations that I feel like I should fulfill, blah blah, but I don't feel like they interfere with something as strong in me as being creative, because although I don't see myself, I can't think of myself as an artist because I don't know, I don't produce as much as much art as I'd think, as I'd like to produce, blah blah blah, but I do think of myself as someone creative. So I feel like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I can't be told, you know, shouldn't be focused on this, blah blah. I don't know if
Mm.
that answers your question.
No, I think, I mean, that was like above and beyond. There was so many things that I wanted to like unpack there. The first being what you said about you kind of took charge. It feels like you took charge of your own life. And I think that's the most important thing, because most of us, especially as adults, we kind of just go through the motions of life. So just the fact that you were like, I want to be more creative, and then you took the initiative to do that, it really reminded me of that Paulo Coelho quote, which I'm going to completely butcher because I don't remember it. But you know that one in The Alchemist where he's like, when you want something, the whole world conspires, the whole universe conspires to give you
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah, so that really reminded me of what you said, basically, of everything kind of aligned. And I think it's just kind of having that intention and putting it out there, and then the universe literally does conspire to make it happen. I think that's such an awesome thing.
Yeah, I that's how I feel. That's what I feel happened. It's just this,
Mm,
yeah, literally all I feel is I feel like it was a real shift, because one day I was thinking about one thing and then the next day I was thinking about something else, and that just came out of
mm-hmm,
a bit of frustration, because
mm,
I was kind of frustrated with certain things, not with my life, just with my mindset. Um,
yeah,
and then I decided that, oh, actually, I'm going to, I guess, infuse a bit more art into my life,
mm,
and kind of, yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I feel like part of being creative or part of being artistic is being able to notice art all around you, right? Like in your everyday
mm-hmm,
life,
definitely. Yeah.
and having this, I don't know, being able to notice beauty around you,
Yes.
and I feel like I have that. I know you have
Mm-hmm.
that. I know that's something that we talk a lot about, don't we?
Yeah.
And something that um, our conversations back in the past, that was
Yes.
a big topic that we
Mm-hmm.
like to talk about. Um, so it's not like I've been completely removed from my creative part. If
Yeah.
anything, I've been living it every day, but it's just I guess a little bit of a lack of intention behind whatever I was doing, and that kind of obsessive focus that I have sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you said that, because like most people wouldn't think to become more creative in their life if they are feeling a bit down or something, you know what I mean? So how would you like, how come you made that shift to automatically think, okay, I'm feeling a bit this way in life, I'm going to become more creative? You know, like what kind of made you shift in a way, if you don't mind sharing?
No, of course, yeah. I think if anything, this is something that I have thought about, and I think it has to do with the fact that I feel and think of myself as a creative and artistic. I think it's an identity thing that it feels a bit like I'm going back to myself. I'm coming home to myself, quote unquote, or just wanting to honor who I feel like inside of
Right.
myself. And when I talk about like the frustrations that just things that I was thinking about, it's not necessarily any outside pressures or life pressures or whatever. It's just this mindset of focusing on things that I didn't want to focus on, and then thinking, actually, I am this and I am that, and and I've applied the same kind of thing to other aspects of my life as well, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I think I love what you said about the identity thing, because that's actually something that James Clear mentions in his book Atomic Habits, is if you want to take up a habit, then you should take up the identity of that habit. So for example, if you want to go running every morning, then you have to think of yourself as a runner. So in the same way, if you wanted to be more creative, then you have to think of yourself as a creative, right?
I really like that. That's really cool. Do you
Yeah.
find that in your life that you kind of apply the same attitude to certain things?
I think for me, it's different, because it's always been like, I've always had like severe imposter syndrome, I would say. So in a way, me doing all of this creative stuff is kind of like me trying to beat that voice in my head that's telling me, oh, you're not good enough, or you're not an artist, or you know, you're just kind of like a fake kind of thing. So maybe that's just more my own personal issues. But it's always been a struggle for me to actually just admit, like, oh hey, I am an artist. Because there's always something in my head that's telling me, you're not an artist because you don't have a proper body of work, you're not an artist because, you know, of XYZ. And I think that's maybe another common issue that artists have. I mean, when I was doing my Pixel Paper podcast and I was interviewing artists, pretty much every single person talks about imposter syndrome. So I feel like that's, in a way, that sounds like the trait of a true artist is to have imposter syndrome. Just because
Everyone else, sorry, go on.
No, just because like you're just kind of like, well, what am I doing? But everyone else around you is like, hey, like you're good at art, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to say to you. I don't have a body of art, but I feel like you're quite prolific. Look at your YouTube channel. Like,
oh, thank you.
but
See, but
I do
that's a
agree.
different thing. I've always struggled with that issue, because I actually posted something on my story recently where it's like, where it said, am I an artist or an attention seeker? And I've thought about this question a lot, because doing YouTube, I am making content and I don't necessarily consider that art. I do the art for the content, right? But is that necessarily art in its purest form? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing art for the sake of it. I'm doing art for the sake of a YouTube video. And there's a big difference, in my opinion. This discussion was recorded a few weeks ago, and having said that, I have started to treat my YouTube videos as more of an exploration playground for different types of animation and content. I think it's about expanding the definition of what art means for me, and expanding also what I view as creativity on my channel, which now includes animation and video work, not just purely a painting or a drawing. And I talk a bit later about my struggles with trying to make videos more interesting, which now that I'm editing this video quite a few weeks after this conversation, I think it's quite interesting to reflect back on that and see how my thoughts have changed and how I'm starting to make the video itself more of an art form.
But when you're making the art, yes, you're making it for content, but are you also making it because it makes you feel good or gives you, like, can you tell me more about other motivations you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think, see, it's kind of like a double whammy in the sense that I'm making content, but also this is the time when I actually get to sit down and make art, because otherwise I don't think I'd sit down and make art. You know what I mean? I think I'd be the same as anyone else who's kind of like, oh, I don't have time to make art because I don't have like the motivation to do it. But because I have this YouTube channel and I have this kind of deadline that I've set myself, and obviously the YouTube channel's increasing in subs, and like there's more pressure as time goes by and you get more subscribers and stuff. So there's kind of like this motivation to be like, okay, I need to post a video, so I need to make a piece of art. But if I'm going to make a piece of art, then I might as well make something that I want to make, right? So in a way, I have found that I am making more art just in general because I need to experiment and find new things to show in my videos and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of like it's a double-edged sword almost.
Okay. To me, it sounds also like you've just found a very like efficient or appropriate way for you to schedule in your
Yeah,
art
yeah, I
into your
guess.
day. Because
I
yeah, I
guess,
mean
yeah.
every artist or creative writer, whatever kind of expressionist has their process, right? Aren't there those I don't know, books about artists who have their specific habits, like, or
Yeah,
writers, like this writer who, for example, wakes up. I'm making it up. I can't think of anyone right at the moment,
right,
but
right,
like
right.
someone who wakes up like at 6, writes for 3 hours, and then does other stuff.
Yeah.
It's just you found the method that works for you, no?
That's a good way of putting it. But I think because I have that extra pressure of like, oh, I have to post something, there's pressure basically. There's like oh, I have to post something. And sometimes, especially these days, I've kind of found like it's a bit of a chore. Like, oh, I'm thinking, oh no, I
Mhm.
have to post another video kind of thing. So at this point in my YouTube career, I would say I'm trying to figure out ways to somehow make videos or make the process of making videos more interesting, or how can I make my videos different to what I've been doing before? How can I progress to the next step? Basically, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out at the moment.
And what does the next step look like for you?
For me, I think it's how can I make my visual content more interesting, because I've kind of been a bit like I've kind of for the last year, I would say that I've just focused on like just outputting a video a week, just trying to
Mm.
get to that habit. So I wasn't super ambitious with how I filmed videos or what kind of like video format I was making. It was mostly just, oh, I make a piece of art and I'm kind of filming that from different angles, which is cool. And I think that's a really good fallback video style to fall back on. But like, I am also someone who's really interested in filmmaking and video making as an art
Yeah.
form itself. So that's really something that I want to explore. But there's also quite a few limitations because, I'm doing everything myself and it's hard to film
Mm.
myself. Like, I don't know how people do it, to be honest, but maybe that's something that I need to figure out in the sense of like, I need to just figure out how I can film myself and what kind of story I want to tell through the video itself, not just a time lapse of a painting, which, as interesting as it may be, I kind of want to explore and branch out a bit more and just make the video itself a piece of art. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah. That's really cool that you know exactly where you want to be and what you want to to do. But I guess when you talk about figuring out how to get there, are you trying to kind of continue to yeah, find the best way to do it, or what
Hmm.
is in the way, do you think,
I think
to
it's just
that
the
step?
consistent, like, because I have to put out a video each week. I don't have enough time
Mm.
to figure out how I want to make
Right.
a nice structured video. That's the issue. But because it's such a vicious cycle, like you have to keep posting weekly in order to get that momentum. But at the same
Yeah.
time, that means that you have a limit as to how much you can produce. And obviously I have a full-time job and things, so there's limits basically. So you kind of have to give up one thing or the other. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what should I give up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's good like to have these kind of discussions because we can both say our thoughts out loud and figure out what we're both doing in our lives. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, it really helps, even to have spoken about that shift. I mean, I think of it in metaphysical terms, to be honest, but I'm not going to go there. But but to have actually verbalized it with you, I think it's actually the first time I verbalized it. I mean, I've had the quote unquote shift for over a month now, but it's the first time I verbalized it. So thank you for giving me the space to do that.
Yeah, no worries. In fact, I'd like to, if you could explain a bit more about what your Lilac project is, that would be cool.
Yeah, sure, of course. So basically, I think I just decided that one day I was browsing colors, and I think this was actually almost a year ago. I was browsing colors, and I just really liked the shade of lilac, the paint that I wanted to buy. And then based on that, I was like, oh, hey, this is going to be my next project. And that was full stop. But similar to what about my 100 Ocean project.
Yes, I wanted to speak to you about that as well.
Yeah, that was my first quote unquote project, and then this is the second kind of one, and they both have the same starting point of I found the color, I decided that I need to do something with this color, did some background research into it, and just lived with the color. And then I spent like almost a year just playing around with that color for the Ocean 100, and I'm trying to do the same with the Lilac project, but the research part and the gathering part is still ongoing. Like I said, for about a year now, I found that color, and then I decided that it's going to be my next project. And then I bought a lot of lilac clothes because wow, it was suddenly trendy. It's quite trendy, like everyone is wearing that color, and I'm like looking around like, oh, that's my color, but I can't really say that out loud because not really like, oh, I didn't make it. Exactly, yeah. But so yeah, I've been really lucky actually that it became trendy. I painted one of my denim jackets that color. I've been painting my nails in that same shade.
Nice. Oh my
Basically
gosh.
living the color. And as you see on my Instagram account, I have lilac collection, so I just take pictures of all the different kind of shades of purple. But that's the issue, is that I've been collecting this color, I've been thinking about this color, I've been kind of sometimes just thinking about it, but I have not expressed it yet in a creative project. But I told you recently that I am coming close to deciding what to do with it, and I will be starting soon. I just have a bit more research to do. Today I went like charity shopping, like shopping from a charity shop, and I got a book I feel that is relevant to the expression of the project. I won't be talking about expression yet, but it was like, oh, this 50p book. Perfect. I'm going to read this book, and that will hopefully bring me closer to the expression of the project. But basically, as you can see, it's I think it's just someone described when I was telling them about this project and the Ocean 100 project, 100 Oceans project. They said, oh, so it's basically method acting. That's what I do. Method, how like method actors get into the zone by pretending to be a character while they get ready to they just pretend that they're that character. That's basically what I've been doing with this color, and before with the blue. So yeah, I think I just enjoy being in character or whatever, or pretending to kind of live something and make it part of my life and infusing it into my life. And yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. And I think but yeah, like I said, I'm close to finding and executing the expression of the Lilac project.
Wow. So I wanted to ask you actually like what your research consists of, but is it what you said about like the whole method acting thing?
Yeah, I'm trying, I'm calling it research, but it's basically like just taking pictures, a lot of pictures of the color, wearing the color, not pretending, like saying it's my current favorite color, coloring with that color. So I'm not, it's not the actual, I haven't done the actual project yet, but it's just using that color in a lot of things I've done. So a lot of the things that I've been painting recently or like over the last year has included that color or shades of purple. Just yeah, so I think of that as research. Do you know if there's another kind of term that is used for that? Because I feel like I'm missing
I have
the
no
right
idea
term.
actually, but I think research is a good enough term.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Immersion, I don't know.
Yeah. I just really like the description of method acting. So like, yeah, I'm a method actor. I'm a method artist.
Why not? I think that you should just embrace that. That's awesome. So I think one thing that I wanted to ask you after what you said is what did you do for the Oceans 100 project, and what did you find that the outcome was for yourself?
Yeah, so that was, I keep thinking a couple of years ago because that was 3 years ago, wasn't it? Wow.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Time.
Yeah. The Ocean 100 project was basically, so similar to what I said about the Lilac Project, was I came across this color and then I got a couple of other shades, and I was just procrastinating from having to study for my final exams. And I kept painting and it made me feel really good. You know, that specific canvas that I was using, which was just cheap canvas from the works. I think the brush that I had and the colors, it's just a combination. It felt really good. And then I thought, hey, don't you love making art, and don't you want to think of yourself as an artist, although you don't make much? So why don't you do a little project around that? Why don't I do 10? And basically where I just draw ocean-like or sea-like pictures. And I did that. I reached 10, and then I thought, actually, maybe let me make some more. And then I decided on 100. I was like, oh, that's a beautiful number, a nice round number to reach towards. I can continue doing this. I can take my time and it feels good. But also the pressure I placed was on the number, not on anything else. I didn't give myself a time frame or anything. I just thought, oh, it would be perfect to have 100. And then putting them together, when I finished, it was October 2019. And I remember we met a couple of times that month, I think. I remember that month vividly because I remember we had, not vividly, but like as vivid as you can remember, have a memory be. I remember we went to, I don't know if I can mention, this gallery that has a nice cafe that we like to go to. And I was like, please try. Oh no, not we like to go to, I like to go to. And I was like, please try the almond tea here. And I was obsessed with that almond tea, and I still have it. Actually, I bought the actual one.
No way.
Yeah, I still drink it sometimes. Not obsessively, but I remember, you have to try this note. You were like, oh, it's nice. But I'm sure, like, I was like, oh no, you're supposed to like it even more than you like it. I was like, you have to like it because I love it. And yeah, we had this really cool conversation. It was around that time. And I remember October 2019 being really slow. I had just submitted my dissertation, and I had an internship coming up in November. I was like, this month is strange. I just have to pack things up. I have to fix things, and there's nothing going on. There's no progress in my life. I just remember thinking that. I was like, no, October it's not great. But I was like, actually, I can use this month to finish up the Ocean 100. So I finished all 100 of the canvases, and it felt really good. I put them together. Looked like a mosaic. Mosaic, is that how you say it?
Mosaic.
Mosaic, yeah. I just thought it looked really nice, and I was very happy, but also quite sad. I was like, oh, I have to now I stop. Now I have to maybe find another place to do this. But I was quite proud of myself because I don't do art typically on a daily. It's not something that I do as much as I would like to do. So being able to focus on one thing and just having a target, I think that really helped. So ever since, I've been kind of clinging onto that feeling and wanting to replicate it in other parts of my life. So as you can see, now I'm trying to do it with the Lilac Project. And so that was a fun memory of mine.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it goes back to what you said about the seasons thing. You know, like it kind of art or projects kind of come to you in seasons. And, you know, there was a gap between the Blue Project and the Lilac Project, but maybe that gap was meant to be, obviously, because you needed that time to digest and you needed that time and that space away from the two projects in order to be able to get to the next one, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a really good point. I mean, when we think about it, removed from creative seasons, we know that it's also other things come into play. Like I know that that I had a lot of like growth experiences that induced growth in me. I think I had good experiences, bad experiences, things that had nothing to do with my artistic process, but then coming into this new project or trying to find new processes to artistically express myself, I find that that gap was really important to have had, because I was focusing on other things. And if you remember earlier, I was talking about quote unquote coming home to myself, whatever. That whole thing, I think, that's kind of beautiful in itself, the fact that I was away and then I'm coming back, and in the future I will be away again, and maybe that's inevitable. Maybe I will try to resist that or fight that, or maybe I'll be indifferent. But I like that kind of coming and going, because who are you? You don't always know who you are if you're not able to see who you're not, or whatever, you know, that kind of principle.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, yeah, like I think that's really important, because I lost my train of thought. But what were you saying? You were saying like,
I was just saying, I wasn't really fully engrossed in the artistic process, although I was kind of
the space.
I wasn't in that space.
Yeah, I can't get that thought back for some reason. But
that's okay.
But I think one thing that I wanted to kind of ask you actually was, you mentioned before, like you don't necessarily consider yourself an artist, but yet you are a creative person. And I think that's something that perhaps a lot of people resonate with, or they don't realize that they resonate with, but maybe they want to. Like, there are so many people in my life, when they see my work and stuff, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. Or, you know, at one time I was doing art, but now I stopped. So what would you kind of say to encourage people to, you know, who maybe in that situation, they may think, oh, I want to do something creative, but I'm not really an artist, you know?
I think that's something that I do come across a lot in my life, because I also have a lot of people in my life who aren't necessarily artists, or aren't necessarily artistic or creative, or don't think of themselves as such. But then I always like that Picasso quote that I can't remember, but everyone knows about, everyone being born an artist and then growing up, and you know, I can't remember exactly the quote, but something about that. And I think that's true. I think when you're a child, I have a baby nephew who's almost 2 years old, and my sister keeps sending me videos of him walking on what's it called? Potholes, like and drainage in the street, and all like the metallic stuff on the street, and jumping on it, and you know, like exploring it. And she's like, what is he doing? Why is he so obsessed with like the drainage and what's it called, like the
sewage,
I don't know,
stuff.
the sewage? Yeah, exactly. I wanted to say it in Arabic or like horrara. Why is he so obsessed with that? Like, but I'm like, because he's curious, because it's new to him, because it's fascinating, because he recognizes this looking like the one that is on his street, and he recognizes the one that is near his nursery, and the one that's near the shop, blah blah. It's because he just is able to recognize these kind of tiny patterns, but also find novelty in them. And I think part of being creative or being artistic or just being able to being someone who appreciates art and beautiful things is being able to see the novelty and the familiarity of in things, finding novelty in things and familiarity in things. And the reason I brought up my baby nephew is because I feel like, because that's part of what being artistic is about. I think it's just finding that curiosity about the world and tying that to just your feelings, the way you feel about things. And we all have that in us. We all get, excited about things. We might not all be excited about the same things, but we all have that same thing of being excited to find novelty and familiarity in things, like both of that in the same thing. The way my nephew feels about the sewage, it's and I don't say that in these words to people that I think would like to be to find ways to be creative and to practice art, but it would be to that effect. It would be just what did you like doing as a kid, and why? And I don't know if that answers your question, but I just get really excited about about tying creativity and to being a child, because at the end of the day, I feel like, I don't know, it's experiencing world in the purest form in a way, but at the same time, like, you're experiencing it with all the feelings that you might experience as a child, but at the same time, there's this filter added onto it, right, of taste and what you think, refined understandings of what you think is beautiful and it's not, and all that. Sorry, I'm just like all over the place, but
no, that's beautiful. I think in a nutshell, if I was to, my takeaway from what you said is just to explore your curiosities, and I think that's a sense that gets dulled down a lot or completely once you become an adult. Your curiosities don't matter. You have to follow a standard curriculum, you have to follow a standard career. There's no room for you to explore and wonder and discover things, because you have to just follow the standard, right? Like, there's so many careers, which all the most sought after careers, doctor, engineer, lawyer, dentist, whatever, they're all following the same path, right? And I mean, obviously that's changing now with, there's loads of entrepreneurs and creatives who are in celebrated careers, obviously, but still it's still less, and it's still not something that's mainstream. Not that I'm saying it has to be mainstream to be good necessarily, because mainstream stuff isn't necessarily always good, but I think it's just something that we lose as an adult, and it's kind of sad, really. So that's something I would add maybe to what you said.
No, I agree with you. And actually, that's a really, really big fear of mine. Of course, I am myself finding that I don't have the same enthusiasm about certain things.
Definitely.
But that scares me, that terrifies me, because I feel like a big motivator for being, or at least I'm driven a lot by being enthusiastic about things.
Right.
Maybe that's just the way I am as a person. Like, I have to care about things to be involved in them. Like, I have to have, something driving me behind doing things. But part of that is just being curious about things and wanting to
Right.
find novelty in things. So
Yeah.
of course, the older you get, I agree with you about defined paths and having to follow certain pathways. But also,
Yeah.
I think part of the dimming of the curiosity also has to do with the fact that you're not curious because a lot of things are less familiar. I mean, less novel. You are able to, you're like, oh, I've done this before. It's not that special
Right.
because it's not new, it's not shiny. And that's true, and it happens, but I don't know, I'm really scared about getting to that point of like waking up one day and thinking, oh, I've woken up before. I think I've woken up hundreds of times by now, or maybe even thousands of times by now. That's not very special anymore. I'm really
Right.
scared of that happening. And I know it's not exactly how that works, but it's the same kind of principle of, okay, I'm not excited because it's not new and it's not, yeah, I'm really scared of that day coming. So I'm always trying to find ways to not have that happen just by I don't know, doing different things.
I think it's just about injecting novelty into your life, and I think the way most people do that is through traveling, especially once you get older. Now you have the money to be able to travel, so that's kind of how people do it, I suppose, which is fine. I think that's fine, but also what, in a way, like there was an article I read which was kind of like, it was talking about how there's only so much you can travel until you get bored, right? And it's kind of true.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're traveling, there's an article basically by an author who I love. He's a writer, he's a blogger basically, and I did an online course of his really recently.
Oh, cool. Cool.
So he's called Lawrence Yeo. He writes this blog more to that, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned his name in like all of my recent videos on YouTube. But he made a video called "Travel is No Cure for the Mind." Sorry, an article called "Travel is No Cure for the Mind," and in it he talks about this box of experience or something, like the daily experience, and it's kind of a cycle basically where, let's say you're at work, you're bored, and then you schedule a holiday, and you're so excited about that holiday, and then you go on holiday, and then what happens is you just come back to work, and then you're bored again, and then you're just waiting for the next holiday. So it's kind of like the cycle of this. I mean, I'm not saying that happens to everyone, and I'm not saying that travel is bad or anything, but it's kind of like, I don't know what my point was, to be fair.
Oh, I think I get it. It's like it can't be your only like it can't be escapism. Like, yes, we do, escapism can be fun, but there's only so much escapism you can do before it stops curing whatever you're trying to escape from. Is that kind of what you were?
I think so, but I think also, and this is probably just me, but I feel like everything I do needs to have a purpose. So if I'm traveling somewhere, I want to gain something from that experience, and for me, I think art helps me to gain something from the experience, because I'm documenting the experience. I'm literally immersing myself in that experience if I'm drawing the place that I'm in, or if I'm, taking inspiration for a painting, or, art allows me to be very present. And I think that's why I love doing art, because it allows me to add meaning to my life and in what I'm doing. It's not just a case of, oh, I'm taking nice selfies and I'm taking photos of food and what I wore, which is fine, by the way, it's fine, but it's not anything special. It's not anything unique to you specifically. So I guess that's the point I was trying to make.
Would you say you're kind of like documenting your experience, but not just your experience by, for example, posting a selfie or food, but like the way you feel about the experience, because you're filtering it through, because you were talking about like, oh, it's not that special. I don't know if you used the word special, I think you did, but like it's not that, it's not reflecting something about you. Is that kind of, do you think the difference?
I feel like, just kind of going back to what you were saying about how we all get bored because we're doing the same thing, what my point is trying to make is, and I think this is kind of the ethos of my channel, is that you do art to add to the experience, to add your own unique flavor to an experience that maybe hundreds and thousands of people are going to experience. For example, you mentioned waking up, right? Like, okay, we all wake up in the morning, but how can you make that more exciting? Like, what can you do that will inject some creativity into your life first thing in the morning. Maybe that's journaling. Maybe that's you get up and you do a quick sketch. Maybe that's, I don't know, like that's just a very random example. But like, for example, me, I take the metro every day to go to work, and it's boring as hell. Like, honestly, it's so boring. It's so dead. And I hate it. It's a boring journey. But what can I do to make that more interesting, more fun? And I'm not saying I do this every day, but like some days I will sketch. Some days I will stop and look at the view, and I'll take in what's around me. I'll take a photo of something and I'll think, oh, maybe I'll save that to draw later. Some days, I remember there was one time, I mean, there's been several times when I've literally been jammed in by just tons of people all around me. And I remember as soon as I got off the metro and I was walking home, I sat down on a bench and I drew that scene from memory in my sketchbook. And that's just one of those things. By the way, sorry. Yeah, I think it's just one of those things which is like, I don't know, it's just so random and so normal, but in doing that, it makes that moment special, and it makes that moment, it makes your ordinary moments in life unique, and it makes your life more worth living in a way.
Yeah. So I guess when you talk about wanting to do everything with purpose, it's also kind of being intentional about what you do.
Yes, exactly. And I think it goes back to what you do in your Lilac project. You're a lot more intentional, I suppose, when you're doing that project, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be as well, because one of the things I personally struggle with is being intentional, because and I think maybe a lot of people do, but I enjoy doing a lot of different things, and but I do also go with the flow a lot, and that's not a bad thing, but sometimes going with the flow and just seeing where things take you, you know, you can only do too much of that. You can do too much of that. Basically, you can do too much of going with the flow. So I'm trying to be more intentional. I think the way to do that has been for me to make a note of things that I'm seeing, make a note of things that I'm doing, and for example, I use notes a lot to write down things that I want to do, just to kind of add that to the going with the flow in my everyday life. But then there's something, I don't know if you know about my zines, my Farah zines, but I've been doing them for a while, actually.
Yeah.
I'm still doing them. I think I'm up to number 22 now, or 23.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I've been doing them every month. Yeah, I'm actually supposed to work on the one for April, maybe today and tomorrow. Yeah, no, I think it's 23 now. Yeah, and through that, I mentioned that because I also am using that to be intentional as well. So basically, these zines are a documentation of my month through pictures, through thoughts that I've had, and just kind of post-rationalizing. You might be familiar with this word, Noel. Remember, we talked a lot about this in October 2019. Post-rationalizing, basically reflecting on something in the past. So I've been using these monthly zines to reflect on the month by kind of giving it a theme and a flavor, and yeah, just basically reflect on that, on the month. And I mean, it's the 15th of May, and I haven't finished the April one yet. Initially, it was supposed to be done like on the last day of the month, but I've been just like pushing it further and further. but it's still interesting, because I do kind of sometimes see a shift, or at least I'm trying to kind of create a shift between a little bit of a shift between each month, or kind of have like recognize that, okay, this month finished, this next month is going to be different. I don't know, it's just been really useful to kind of be more intentional, which is what we were talking about, like yeah,
that's awesome. I think, is that something that you share with people, or you're happy to share with people, or it's just for you personally?
So a lot of basically my way of doing art is that I love sharing, but I also hate sharing. Like I have this weird thing. So I sometimes I share and sometimes I don't. But I have everyone I send. So everyone I complete, I share on my Substack. So I have a Substack and I have, I think, 11 followers.
Nice.
And it's just basically some friends who read it.
Right.
But I'm happy to share it actually. So I don't know how to do that, but maybe, so it's Farazine Substack or Farah's e-zines or something. Sorry, I can't remember, but
no worries.
Yeah,
I can put that in the link in the bio or whatever, if you want me to do that.
Yeah, that's okay. And then you get a link to the magazine every month, and it's just a little PDF flick magazine that you can flick through, and it's very self-centered. It's just about me. It's not about anything else. I mean, all the way down to the name, Farah Zine. So I don't know. That's why it's one of the reasons I don't share it as widely as
right.
as I want. I'm like, maybe sometimes it's just for me. Sometimes it's for all of us. Sometimes it's for certain people. It's like, I think I have a bit of a weird relationship about sharing things, and I know that it's something that you talked about as well, like what you said about, am I an artist or am I an attention seeker? Like,
exactly.
Who are you creating for?
That's definitely, like, as you were saying that, I'm really in awe of people who just make stuff for themselves, because I'm like, I could never do that. Because I'm always thinking like, okay, how am I going to share this on social media? Like, what content can I make today that I can post on social media or that I can make for YouTube? And it takes away from the genuinity of the art, or at least I think so. And that's not to put myself down. I'm just saying it as it is, right? Like, it's just, I just find it so admirable that you can do that for yourself, because I honestly don't think I'd have the motivation to do that for myself, to make a zine like every month just for me. Even though I would love to, I would love to do that, but yeah.
I guess the downside of doing it just for yourself is that I'm not really challenging myself. I'm not even able to challenge myself because I'm not really getting any criticism, any feedback. I'm not putting myself out there, right? Like, not in the way that you are. And again, I'm not saying this to put myself down.
Right.
It's like the different ways of, it's just the differences here. I'm not getting any feedback, and maybe that's intentional. Maybe I don't want to be criticized, right? Maybe I just want to enjoy what I'm doing, but that's not going to necessarily help me grow or help me reflect on things with others. I'm just reflecting by myself. I'm being really subjective about a lot of my daily experience. So again, balance, right? But at the same time,
I think it's just about your intention, no? Like, what do you want to get out of it?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a question I've been just, what do you want to get out of it? I think I've been asking that to myself sometimes over the last like 6 months or so. Whenever I do something, if I meet up with people or something, and I really want to have a good conversation, because that's not always possible. I think sometimes you just spend time with people, and you have some nice small talk, or you have a nice experience together, blah blah. But I really enjoy the conversations where you can feel kind of seen, and you can see the other person. That's what I live for. But that's not always. Yeah, and I feel like we have conversations like that when we do, but it's not always possible to do that. So I have been going into conversations thinking, what do I want to get out of this? And it has really, really worked. I think if I say to myself, okay, I want to have a good conversation with this person, or I want to laugh today in this conversation, or I want to do this and that. So going back to what you said earlier about being intentional, it really, really helps, I think, because I mean, of course, it helps you kind of create targets for what you want to achieve, but also I like the quote that the Paulo Coelho quote about like, oh, the whole universe is conspiring for this certain thing that you want. So I think if you know what you want, and then there's a good chance that you can make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just judging from this conversation and previous podcast conversations and just general conversations I've had with people, it's that if you want to find out, if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what you want, then you should probably, one way of figuring it out is speaking with other people about it, or at least journaling about it, speaking with yourself about it. Because once you voice those thoughts out loud, it becomes a lot easier to figure out what you want. And to realize that, hey, I do know what I want. It's not just a case of I'm confused.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, because if you don't kind of get into the habit of, or not even necessarily the habit of, but of recognizing certain things, then, because it is basically just recognizing things, because they are there. What you want is there. They just might be hidden from you, and you just have to maybe make a decision to pivot towards a certain kind of place of where you want to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that might be a good place to end the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
What do you say? Yeah?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. So
me too.
So thanks so much for suggesting this and giving me the chance to talk about the projects and stuff. So hopefully I'll be able to find the right expression for the Lilac Project soon. And
I hope so.
But I'm more excited about it now that I spoke about it with you.
Thank you for listening if you got this far, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next week for another video.